All right, Celtics postgame. After a nice win over the Dallas Mavericks, and the Celtics have been playing great this year. Uh, so I know I haven't done one of these in a while, but they've been winning. It's not much to say. It's not much to go over. The best team in the NBA right now, record-wise, and arguably the best team in the NBA overall. So I have a lot of thoughts I want to get out. It's going to be three big topics here. So the first one is Jason Tatum. The MVP case for Jason Tatum, because clearly he's made a leap this year, right? Not only does he just seem bigger somehow, but he's playing bigger in the biggest moments. When I say he seems bigger, I mean he's up his free throw percentage. In terms of his ability to go in and get fouled when his shot isn't working. Um, he's just playing a lot stronger at the basket, which again is one of the biggest issues that he had in the finals, right? Is when his shot wasn't working, he just had issues getting to the basket, which was kind of weird because it's not like the Warriors had some big intimidating center, that would stop you from actually being able to get to the basket. But he's getting to the free throw line, he's getting to the restricted area, and he's getting a lot more of his points that way. And I think he also just kind of has every counter to every move at this point. I mean, towards the end of the game today, Mavericks would throw double teams and he would, he's waiting and being patient and passing out of them if he needs to. He's faking like he's dribbling out and then going back into it. Even when they're throwing him the ball with a couple seconds left on the shot clock, he's still able to, get into his moves and get to the step back three or get around the defender. And I mean, he was just torching Luka today, which, isn't anything crazy. We know Luka's not that great of a defender, but every year he's taken a leap, and every year I'm like, man, is that the last one? But it seems like he's kind of taken his biggest leap this year into the point where, I think before the season I had him seventh on my list of top players, and I think he's arguably in the top three now. I mean, so let's go through the list here. And especially here's the case for MVP. So I think the top three right now is Luka, Giannis, and Tatum. And you can have Embiid in there, you can have Jokic in there, you can have Curry in there. For Embiid, the Sixers are just a mess, and the counting stats are going to be similar, but not as great as Luka, Giannis, or Tatum. So without the team success, I don't think Embiid gets in there. Jokic could average whatever he wants this year. He's not going to get a third MVP in a row. It just doesn't happen, you know. And then Curry has been playing amazing. I mean, he's been MVP level, but again, with the record not there, and I think the boat has kind of sailed on the Curry MVP thing. Although I wouldn't be surprised if he gets himself into the top four towards the end of the season. But okay, so you're looking at Luka. Luka's 33 and a half points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Giannis is 30 points, 11 and a half rebounds, 5 and a half assists. And Tatum is 30 points, 7 and a half rebounds, and 4.6 assists. So the issue for Tatum being able to get MVP is that his stats aren't ever going to be what Luka and Giannis are outside of points, right? I mean, there's a world where Tatum could end up as the leading scorer. I don't think it's a likely world. I think it's more likely that Luka ends up as the leading scorer. But when you're looking at some of those other stuffing the stat sheet kind of things, Luka and Giannis are going to have the edge on him with that. So with Luka, I think you can actually have a pretty decent argument for why Tatum should be the MVP over him. Right? Luka's never going to be the two-way guy and have the defensive impact that Tatum does. In addition, that team is completely built around Luka, and without the players around him, I mean, he might not even end up being a top 6 seed in the West. That's entirely possible. So I don't know if you're going to really vote. If Tatum ends up being the number 1 seed with the Celtics, I don't see how you could vote Luka over Tatum. Giannis is going to be the real problem, especially if Giannis gets the 1 seed. Forget about it. There's just no way to do it because Giannis is if not, he probably is more impactful on defense. In addition to getting more rebounds and more assists and around the same amount of points as Tatum. So I think it's going to really come down to Giannis and Tatum if they both keep up, the way that they're playing. But I think Tatum does have an edge in narrative, right? It's so much noise around this team and controversy around this team starting it, and Tatum kind of made that leap versus Giannis is kind of the same as he's always been, which is great, but there's nothing really new or exciting in a sense of anything being new about Giannis versus Tatum has made this leap. He's become the undoubted leader of this team. He's playing bigger in the biggest moments. And if he can get that 1 seed, then you have the narrative of, well, this is the best team in the NBA. This is the best player in the NBA. He has clearly made a leap here. And even if the stats aren't as, don't seem as impactful as Giannis or Luka, I think that's where you can still get, Tatum can get an MVP this year. But I mean, even in the game today, if you're watching these games, the Mavs cut it to about 10, and they were down like 25, 27 points at certain points in the game. They cut it down 10. It's about 4 minutes left in the quarter. Tatum goes in, dunks the ball, and this is when the Celtics were starting to get the shit their pants offense, when they're chucking up a lot of threes, when they're letting they're letting it run down to the end of the shot clock. Tatum dunks the ball, comes back down, gets free throws. Then Luka's coming back down, and Tatum blocks him off the backboard for a layup. Where you're just like, that's a different Jason Tatum than we've seen his entire career. And so if he can keep this up, I think there is a pretty reasonable argument for Tatum to become MVP. Okay. Second thing is the circle of contenders. I mean, up to this point, and obviously things can change, but right now I think it has to be Celtics 1A, Bucks 1B. And that's just because the Celtics won last year. But the Bucks have looked amazing. Obviously, Giannis is an MVP candidate. Brook Lopez is Defensive Player of the Year candidate, which who would have expected that? 5 years ago, I think he was just the guy who, put up 20 and 8, like kind of average stats on a Nets team that couldn't do anything. And the issue was always his defense, and now he's one of the best Defensive Players of the Year somehow. And he's leading the league in blocks, which is pretty insane. So I think you really, and I mean, even if you look at the West, it's like, okay, I would still say that Golden State is coming out of the West, but I mean, there's four or five reasons why you could say that they wouldn't. Obviously, they wanted all the young guys to take a big step up, and that's not happening at all. I mean, Wiseman, who they spent the number 2 pick on, is now in the G League, playing in goddamn Santa Cruz. So I don't see him really making an impact. Kuminga and Wiseman haven't really stepped up and filled that, the Gary Payton role and the Otto Porter role, so they need a veteran. And sure, they could probably get someone on the buyout market, but those buyout guys never really end up making the impact that you think they're going to have. Clay has looked bad, which sucks because I like Clay. Even if the media kind of hypes him up as, oh, Clay is so fucking funny. Whatever, he's fine. He's like an average kind of guy. I think, oh, he rode his bike into the arena. You're like, oh wow, sick. He autographed a toaster. Fucking wonderful, dude. Anyways, Clay's looked rough, and I know he's he didn't play basketball for 2.5 years, and the injury and everything else. And it's completely understandable that he's playing like that. But Poole is the better player. Even though Poole hasn't really been playing all that well when he's coming off the bench, he plays a lot better as a starter. So you have that Clay issue where it's like, really, Poole should be starting, but how are you going to bench Clay? I mean, it's in that city, it's Steph number 1, without a doubt, but it's Clay too. It's not Draymond. You talk to people from San Francisco, and it's not Draymond who's 2. It is undoubtedly, it's Clay who is 2 in the eyes of the fans, and how meaningful he is to the city. And now everyone is kind of packing Draymond's bags, and that's a weird point. A weird part too is you can obviously tell something is going on with Poole, something's going on with Draymond, where they can do all the public apologies and making up that they want, but there's clearly something going on with that team. So you combine the young guys not playing well, Clay not really being there, and the whole Poole and Draymond dynamic. And even though I still would pick Golden State to come out of the West, they're 8-10 right now, and they don't look especially good, especially with how good Curry is playing. The Nuggets and Clippers are still in there, but I think the Celtics are still better than both of those teams. And the Clippers, who knows? With how much Kawhi and Paul George have been injured this year, I mean, how can you bet on that team? And the Nuggets are good, but I still think their defense leaves a lot to be desired. And I'm not especially scared of them in a playoff team. I think the Suns are probably the best challenger out in the West. I don't know. There's still a part of me that doesn't believe in the Suns. I know they've been good this year. Um, for whatever reason, like they probably match up best with the Celtics, but I'm just not super afraid of the Suns in a playoff series either. So I don't think the West is as big of a problem as it just really comes down to the Bucks. And I think everything that this team should do from here on until the end of the season is getting ready to beat the Bucks. Because in the East, the Cavs are too young. They're not going to in a position to make a serious finals run at this point. The Nets and the Sixers can beat anyone in the series, but both of those teams are a mess. And I just don't really see a come to Jesus moment for either of those teams. And the talent is there. The talent is there for both of those teams. But Brooklyn's defense is a mess. So is the 76ers defense. And I just am not super terrified of either of those teams. I don't think the Raptors and the Hawks have enough talent, so it comes down to the Bucks. And my big fear with the Bucks is if Robert Williams is hurt, which at this point, like nothing is guaranteed. You have to treat it like KG in '09, where they might say he's going to come back, and he's coming back, and he's progressing well. You almost have to expect that he just won't play at all this year, right? That's what you have to assume if you're going throughout the rest of the season if you're the Celtics. And obviously, I hope he comes back, but I still think this team can win a championship with Rob, or without Rob. Sorry, with Rob, you should be the favorites. Without Rob, it's going to be a lot tougher because if it's Game 5 and Horford's kind of worn down and Grant is in foul trouble or Horford is in foul trouble, who are you putting on Giannis at that point? Are you going to give Luke Cornett some fucking run? Or Vonleh, who's played out of the rotation? Blake is out of the rotation. It's just like, that's the worst case scenario because we saw in that playoff series last year, even though the Celtics won, and Giannis did run out of steam in Game 6, if they have Middleton to take off a lot of that offensive load, it's really tough to stop that team. That is a excellent team, and I would probably, as it stands right now, give the edge to the Bucks in a 7-game series without Rob. So, I mean, it's tough to add anyone to this team because, I'm not sure who you could trade for that would really put you over the edge for that. I mean, is it Pirtle? That's the name that gets thrown out there. I don't know. I'm not sure who you could acquire at this point because there's not that many minutes to go around. That's a problem. So, like, if you want to get a starting caliber center and then Rob's back, it's like that guy's probably not playing a ton. Pritchard isn't playing right now, and he's a guy that should get minutes at some point. Hauser is getting minutes, so it's tough because it's like, where do the minutes come from if you get someone? If you're getting someone on the buyout market, like there's always a reason guys are on the buyout market. And everyone's like, sign Dwight Howard, No, we don't want to sign Dwight Howard. There's a reason he's unsigned by a team. There's a reason all these guys don't have a contract right now. And it's going to be hard to get someone to fill that role, but that's just what I'm thinking is the biggest weakness for this team is going to be having a big guy to stop Giannis in Game 6 and Game 7. And I'm not sure we have that right now between Grant, who isn't really a center, and Al Horford, who, as amazing as he is getting up there in age, and Rob Williams, who, as much as we all love him, is always injured, right? Okay. Last thing, it's going to be kind of a bummer, but I want to talk about the Jaylen thing because it's been a mess, and I'm not qualified enough to talk on like all the political ramifications and social and moral ramifications of everything. Go read up on it. I would say generally it seems problematic. And there's a million different things that are complicated in there. It depends on what you read realistically. So read as much as you can so you can get the full picture of it. But what it comes down to for me is, and I know he's like the president of the Players Association and everything, so he has to be in support of the players, which I totally understand. It just doesn't seem like supporting Kyrie right now is the best move that you can make, right? I mean, Kyrie is public enemy number one in Boston. I don't think Kyrie is especially a smart guy. I think he's very introspective. I think he thinks about a lot of things. I think he reads a lot of things. I think he doesn't trust the system, which I guess there's some, intelligence in that. But I don't think Kyrie is an especially smart guy. And especially with all the things that he's put out, all the quotes that he's put out there, and the public reaction that's come with that, if I'm not sure the thing to do is to be like, I'm in support of Kyrie right now. Maybe do that behind closed doors. And I don't want it to be like a shut up and dribble thing. Like, obviously, these guys can speak out about what they believe in. But I feel like Jaylen is bringing on a lot of unnecessary heat to himself by, reposting these things, posting the memes, and coming out with all these quotes about, well, I didn't know what that group was, but, I'm just supporting Kyrie, and, oh, everyone who's talking about me has an agenda, and I don't have an agenda, Jaylen. I guess my agenda is I want this Celtics team to win, and I'm never going to be in favor of bringing on public opinion and noise to a team that has serious, finals aspirations. Especially when the guy you're putting your reputation out on the line for is Kyrie, who's a guy that is not especially reliable, or it's just it's not the time to do it. It's not the right way to do it. It's not, you have to be, if you're going to support Kyrie, then you keep it strictly Kyrie the person. I support Kyrie the person, regardless of what his views are and everything. Kyrie is a close friend of mine, and I hope that he can get back on the court and work through whatever is going on. I never like to see a friend like that be down and be criticized by the media, and I just hope that, I know this is a difficult time for him and everything. I hope everything goes well with him. You say that, no one has a problem, right? Okay, yeah, he's supporting Kyrie, but he's supporting Kyrie the person. When you're starting to post all this stuff, it's like, okay, does he support Kyrie? Does he support Kyrie, or does he support Kyrie's views? Which again, I'm not educated enough. I'm not, that is above my pay grade to go into the whatever Kyrie and Jaylen are posting and whatever, political group or whatever that they're supporting. That's not what I have an issue with. What I have an issue with is how that's going to come off, and that's bringing unnecessary noise, and then just like posting the meme and like kind of doubling down on everything, where it's like, maybe don't double down on it, especially when it's Kyrie, who hasn't proven to be, the best media trained guy, right? And it brings me back to this thing where I'm nervous about Jaylen coming back. Not because like I don't think he'd fit with this team or anything. No, I want Jaylen to come back. I love watching Jaylen play. I think he's an awesome player. I think he's great for the city. I think he's great for this team. And nothing would make me happier, like I've said before, to see Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown playing together in Boston for the next 15 years. Like that's my whole Boston thing right now. You know what I mean? The Patriots are kind of a mess. I don't really follow hockey, so I guess the Bruins are good, just sweet. Patriots are a mess. Red Sox are a mess. They might be letting Bogarts and Devers go, which would be a whole nother issue. So my number one guys right now are Tatum and Brown. And if you could sign me up for the next 15 years, just these two guys are going to be in Celtics uniform, and they're going to be healthy, and they're going to be happy. That's all I really want out of the next 15 years of being a Celtics fan. And it's making me nervous and I'll give you a couple reasons as to why I'm nervous about Jaylen coming back. So he's always been second to Tatum in the city. Look around, it's all Tatum jerseys. Tatum gets the MVP chance at the line. Tatum got the max contract immediately after his rookie deal. Jaylen got a very fair contract because at that point he was, coming off. It was the Kyrie season, so he was coming off the bench for a lot of it. I think he averaged like 14 points or something. Like, it wasn't a crazy season. He wasn't the Jaylen Brown that we know yet. So, to get 26 million, 27 million a year was about the market value, maybe even a little above it. Obviously, he would have made more money if he had waited a year, because that's when he took the big leap, right? But still, like, a fair contract. But at the same time, now it's not an unfair contract, but he's getting paid less than what he's worth, right? And so he's been getting paid less than that. And you look at Tatum, and let's not forget, Jaylen was on the team before Tatum, but now Tatum is getting paid more than what Jaylen is getting paid, significantly more, because Tatum got the max and Jaylen didn't get the max. So because of that, he's going to hit free agency, and you have this whole thing where he's always been second to Tatum in the city and on the team. Tatum is 1, Jaylen is 2. Even when at some points Jaylen was the better player in certain games, certainly in the finals. You have the Durant trade stuff, which has obviously got to hurt, right? You're the second best player on a team that just went to the finals, and now they're thinking about trading you. That's got to hurt. You know what I mean? I don't blame Jaylen at all for having, negative feelings towards the front office for that. And I don't know if he does, I don't know if he doesn't, but I know if it was me, I would be pissed off at the front office. I've done all this shit for you guys, and I took less money, and I'm fine with being the second guy on the team, and you guys are going to fucking trade me? I'd be like, fuck off, So I don't blame Jaylen at all if that's how he feels. So you got the second to Tatum stuff, you got the contract stuff, you got the Durant trade stuff. Now you got that he's supporting Kyrie, who's public enemy number 1, and he's kind of starting to, like, Jaylen is a very smart guy too. Jaylen is a very smart guy, so it's weird that he doesn't, I don't know if understand is the right word, but like, when he's putting this stuff out there, it's not especially good for the brand, you know what I mean? Where, he went to Berkeley and he was taking graduate classes, and, he's the Players Association president, and like, he has this very clean, very like, it's a great brand that he has, and now you're putting out this Kyrie stuff where you're going to get negative public criticism. And I'm just not sure that that's a great thing, especially when you play in Boston and you're coming out in support of Kyrie, who is not exactly beloved in the city of Boston. So, and obviously you have this year, and then it's unrestricted free agency. And like we've talked about before, there's no reason for him to re-sign because of some of the contract rules. He will get a max contract, and the maximum that the Celtics can offer him until he gets to free agency is less than a contract. There is less than a max contract. So with the second to Tatum, the smaller contract, the Durant trade stuff, the Kyrie stuff, I'm not saying he's leaving, but I wouldn't be shocked at this point, and that makes me nervous, because he could always go to another team and have a bigger role. So I'm not sounding the alarm yet, but I'm installing cameras. If this is my house, and I'm like, I want to keep it safe, I'm not getting the full alarm system yet. I'm not hiring like security guards or anything. I'm not moving the house. I'll put up a couple of cameras though. Maybe like one in the front, one over the garage, and one in the back. I just want to see what's going on. I'm not full panic mode yet, but I want to see what's going on there. I think that's most of my thoughts today. I mean, obviously the Celtics have been playing terrific. And it's a really fun team to watch. I think they're a little bit more, it's a little bit less jovial, which is like kind of a good thing. Like they play very serious this year in terms of like until they're winning the games, then everyone's high-fiving and everything. But it seems like it's a team on a mission right now, which I do like. I really do like how they're playing. And one of the things that does make me feel better about the whole Jaylen thing is that he does seem very happy when he's on the court. This whole team seems very happy when they're playing with each other. I think Missoula has been good for this team so far. I like that he doesn't call timeouts during the game. He just kind of lets the team run and lets the team play through it, which is which is important. And this team has shown a great ability to play through it. I mean, they're 13-0 when they're not playing the Cavs and the Bulls. I don't know why the fucking Bulls are giving us so many issues. It's like I think the Bulls are fucking like 8-11 right now. But they're not a good team. The Cavs, I guess I could see that, sure. I'm not sure why the fucking Bulls are giving us so many issues, and we're undefeated against everyone else. Um, so yeah, we got the Kings on Friday. The red hot Kings, dude. NBA's been so weird this year. I still can't believe the Jazz are in first place. Like I even during the NBA preview, I was saying like yeah the Jazz will surprise some people because you had there's so many Boston ties there that I could felt a little bit of what was going on. Those teams end up those Celtics teams even when we were like tanking or rebuilding whatever they were always more competitive than you thought you were going to be. And so you have Hardy come in with the Celtics DNA. You have Ainge who's just going to collect all these pieces, and even if they don't necessarily fit together, he's not a race to the bottom kind of guy. He's well, you know what? I'm just going to collect assets. And he, obviously looked around at all those players he had and said, I'm gonna collect all these guys and I'm gonna hold on to them and let them and let them play. And at some point, if a good offer comes along for Conley or Markkinen or Beasley or whatever, he'll trade them. But at the same time, until then, he's just kind of gonna let it ride. So fucking 12-7 Utah Jazz. There's your Jazz talk for the week. Surprising everyone. And like I said, I said, this team is going to surprise some people because they're, everyone was like, oh, worst team in the league. I was like, well, they're going to surprise some people with, how well they play. I think they'll come back to earth a little bit. And I think they will, eventually start moving some of these guys before the trade deadline. But for right now, it's been an interesting NBA season so far. Glad the Celtics are playing so well. Hopefully they get a win on Friday against the Kings. And this has been the Celtics postgame.